was just tossed out
Gone.
by Nani. She said, cleaning it out. You got to be careful for these things. However, the people at home aren't able to see what I'm able to see. And you are wearing what I would only describe as a shawl lapel power cardigan. And I firmly believe that if you were to just knock on that window as she walked by and just present yourself,
I'm going to give her this.
I think it stops. I think that is
Okay.
That is I've got call. That's an I got call cardigan.
There's an authority with this cardigan?
Oh my goodness. The only thing you're keeping it understated. If you paired it, as I said earlier off air, if you paired it with a cream colored turtleneck,
like a little mock turtleneck even?
Right. You may have ended up winning the election with so many write-ins.
Oh, it would have been strong. I don't know. I'm going to give that a shot. I'm going to give the knock and the finger wave.
Yeah.
Stern face.
Stern, but
Just
fair.
Not threatening.
No,
not threatening. Nay, stern.
Let's just put this through a vetting process before things end up in a dumpster.
Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about it a little bit. She's
Right.
just going to throw things out.
Dumpster's very permanent. It's like a tattoo.
Well, 10 days. 10 days in the construction. Oh, the end game.
The end game, I'm saying. Yes.
There's no getting it back.
No,
I mean, that's the end
gone.
of the road. Once that happens, it's gone.
Right.
Who knows where it ends up? Yeah. Sad.
Landfill.
I'm a big burner. I burn the keepsake stuff versus throw it out.
Such as?
Like if I have to get rid of it, not keepsake stuff, but if there's something that I emotionally attach, and sometimes I'll do this with inanimate objects, rather than throw it, and I'm like, you know what, I don't need this anymore. Like this is just taking.
Like give me an example of something that is tossed into your fire.
Okay, like a lot of the kids' art, because there's a billion pieces of it that come home. Like I'm not going to throw out Flat Paxton, but like in terms of some of the, like I don't need 1,000 pieces of art.
Correct.
So rather than throw it away at risk of it ending up, in some landfill or worse yet, them seeing me throw it out, I will go to a bonfire situation and burn it so that it's gone.
Do you say do you give them like last rites? Do you say any words over the burning of these artifacts from
No, but I'll take
Bishop
a long
children?
look. I'll do the same thing with the Christmas cards at the end of the year. I'll burn those with the tree, so we do the tree. It's a big ceremony. Then we burn the Christmas cards. Because if you send me a Christmas card, I don't want your face to be like on the bottom of a dumpster, and for months on end. I don't want it just eroding in the landfill, so I burn it.
It's a cremation.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a cremation. That's exactly right. Cremate the memories. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I think it's just an excuse to have a big old fire, which I'm totally on board with,
that
as
too.
you know.
I know, yeah, it's very fun. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing more fun than burning the Christmas tree. It goes in about a second, so that's a win.
My parents, when they moved 2 years ago, my mother hands me these 3 giant boxes. It's literally every piece of artwork I've ever done, and I am not artistic by any stretch. Starting in pre-K, and I'm like,
oh my gosh,
what am I doing with this? I appreciate it, but what are you doing?
Right.
What have you done with it?
We won't talk about that. We go down places we don't want to talk.
Do any of them still exist?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I want for our studio an OG and original Gibbe.
There are. I have a small little box that I kept.
I want your original artwork in here. I'll bring in. I have a clay aircraft carrier that I made as a young man, complete with planes on it and everything. That I would be happy to bring in. It fits well with the fact that our studio has been christened by the Secretary of the Navy. Yes.
Correct.
But I would like an OG original Gibbe piece of artwork in here.
I think that would be good.
Art
I'll
was
tell
not
you
my
what.
forte.
I'll bring something too, and I'll bring it like in June of 2022 when I'm allowed
When
back
you're
in.
welcome back. By the way, when you
18
come
months.
back,
Yeah.
if you are allowed back while it's still the winter months, I think we should do Turtleneck Tuesdays on this show because you've really inspired me. I want to go get a cardigan right now and a turtleneck, and I
love that.
And
I
have a
would do that in
bourbon, have a
second.
little bourbon tonight on First
sure.
Thursday.
First Thursday. I think the one thing that I'm for that, I would also be for an occasional Ascot Friday. I would be for that as well.
Sure.
I think that is a not used. I see Charles Woodson wearing that thing, and I'm boy that he's got that sorted out. No tie, no constraint, still looks debonair.
And I've got the velvet coat to go with it. I feel like he likes to have that black velvet, which is that's a real nice looking coat that he puts with that Ascot quite a bit.
Yeah. He had a nice navy blue with a more royal blue, French blue Ascot on Saturday. Just spectacular. Good job out of him. Proud Ohioan. All right, should we make the transition over to what we like from our offense? Some more observations. We talked about something yesterday at the end where, when we were talking about, I think it was with Joe. I want to say it was with Joe, where the idea of, are we picking up enough third downs on the ground?
We're not picking up enough third downs, period.
Period. Yeah.
Period. What I think he means is, getting yourself into those third and shorts where you can run it or pass it. In fact, yesterday, I know for sure off the top of my head, one of our third down conversions was a run. It was a 3rd and 5. Kareem Hunt motion from the left, split out left into the backfield, and they ended up running an inside handoff kind of with a pulling Joel Bitonio, who came out and cleared out Jonathan Abram for about 15 yards. That was definitely one of our 3 third down conversions. We're just not doing enough in terms of converting third down, staying on the field, period, really. I think that's what it comes down to. You're 3 of 10 in this game, and that's a struggle. And Odell Beckham Jr. was missed, I think. Kaderil Hodge comes back. I like Kaderil Hodge. Let me just say that, preface that. But you can't have a guy run 22 routes and not receive a target. Either that means they have been nothing but a decoy, which I don't think Kaderil Hodge is drawing the defensive attention required of somebody truly being a decoy, or they're not creating separation or getting open, or the quarterback is just not seeing them. But to have somebody out there for 22 of our, Baker we had 30 pass plays all told, for 22 routes on the 30 pass plays, and to not see a single target, that's not good. That's not good enough.
No, that's not. And this whole thing, this whole offense, and it's probably why, you can draw a pretty straight conclusion from it's probably why it struggles when it doesn't get to force its will upon a defense, or when it has to chase, because it's all the illusion of everything looks the same. Well, if you got to throw all the time, then you lose the element of that, and that's what makes this offense a little bit more challenging, as you mentioned earlier in the show.
Well, and especially because without Odell, and this is why I want to see Taywan Taylor get a shot, or what I would like to see, if you are to make a small deal, John Ross would not have a high price tag, to bring somebody in here that is an absolute game changer, that even if you hit them 3 times for 50-plus yards the rest of the season, changes the way teams approach you. Because our ground game, while it is still very good, Kareem Hunt, 4.7 yards a carry. And we do run some chunk runs. I alluded to it on that third down run. You're not afraid of us throwing the ball over your head enough to create the space that is needed for either A, big yards after the catch in the passing game, unless it's by unbelievable design, which Kevin Stefanski has incredible design on his plays, or B, to get these chunk runs because you're forcing them all to come up in the box. If we're not chunk running people, they're willing to say, we'll let you get 4 yards here, then we're going to maybe try to stiffen up on second down, and then you've got to be here in a third long. We know what's coming. We know how to handle that aspect of your game right now. And it's not just that Odell was out. The fact that Austin Hooper was out on third downs, I think, made a big difference as well. Because that's a guy who catches everything thrown to him. He knows how to use his body. And if it's 3rd and 5, he can just go run a little stick route, use his body as a shield, catch the ball, and it's a first down Browns. Getting him back will be huge. But we need, what's our element of danger right now? Who scares you?
Not a lot of home run hitting.
How about
not a lot of home run hitting being done right now?
How about this?
In terms of where the threat is.
Donovan Peoples-Jones played 4 snaps. And I realize he's not necessarily our home run hitter. But I don't know. I felt like what he showed in a pretty important moment against Cincinnati would have maybe got him on the field a little more. Of the guys we have, Taywan Taylor, 3 snaps, and I think 2 of them were on the first possession. So I'm not sure if perhaps maybe he ran a wrong route, maybe he did something to receive the ire of the coach staff. I'm not privy to that, but he's a guy who I know can stretch the field, and I want to see him get that opportunity because I think that's what we're missing. Where are our chunk plays going to come from? And that's something you can only scheme so many. And Kevin Stefanski is brilliant at it. Absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
But we need guys that can do it.
Yeah, you thought maybe Chief could have some of that. He's done it over the middle, down the seam, but that hasn't materialized yet. So could it come via trade? 2.5 hours from the trade deadline. One guy is on top of it, as any is Benjamin Albright. He joins us coming up next. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. A sports fan looking for a part-time weekend job, get into the action at First Energy Stadium, home of your Cleveland Browns. Wes is now hiring for part-time event staff and security. Apply online at weshiring.com. And for a team of injury lawyers dedicated to every client every day, call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. And with that, we head on the Fifth Third Money Line. Talk to our great friend Benjamin Albright. He's an NFL insider and host on KOA in Denver as well, and one of the brightest minds in all of football. Benjamin, thank you so much for taking your time and giving us a little bit of it today. Let's just start with this. Nathan and I weren't sure what this was going to look like heading into this thing, with just the uncertainty of the cap, the money situation around the league. I think there's a lot of teams that are trying to tank for these quarterbacks or assets, and I didn't know if it'd be really busy or quiet. It seems like it's going to be quiet today. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be quiet, not just from the COVID perspective and the cap perspective for next year and the uncertainty, but also because you have an expanded playoff format. And I think a lot of teams that would normally be sellers at this point may still think they have an outside shot at making the playoffs and aren't really looking to be sellers. So I think it's a combination of the three.
Ben, what names are you hearing right now, if any, that could be on the move? And we'll get to the Browns specifically in a second, but just in general in the league, are there any names that you're hearing that are potentially on the move here?
Well, most of them are receivers. It's a cold receiver market simply because there's so many available. Familiar names people may know like Golden Tate, Jamison Crowder, John Ross, guys like that. The Texans are willing to shop anybody at this point because they know they need draft picks going forward since they gave them all to Miami. But there are a lot of receivers available out there. So if you need a wide receiver, you can get one fairly cheap.
Have you heard of the Browns being linked to any of those receivers? And the name that seems to make sense because this team just needs vertical speed would be John Ross just down the way in Cincinnati. But with the loss of Odell Beckham Jr., the Browns seemingly could be a team in that market. Have you heard anything on that front?
Well, they made some calls. I'm not sure which way they're leaning and if they're actually going to pay the money to do it, but they have made calls both there and with the Houston Texans. I don't the name that I heard linked with the Browns had to do with the other side of the football, and that was Justin Simmons here in Denver. I heard they called about him, and it would make sense given the connection with Joe Woods, but the Broncos said they weren't going to be sellers at this time, so that got refuted. They may still be looking for additional secondary help.
Damn you, Chargers! You were up 16. You were up 16.
Oh my God, just finish the deal for crying out loud. Chargers, your uniforms are beautiful. For God's sakes, take care of business.
Come on,
Benjamin Albright, our guest, NFL insider. All right, so we know that, and we had felt, about Ngakoue, that the Browns kicked the tires there, that there is this effort being done to try to improve the defense. You mentioned Simmons there. What is that? What's left in that market in terms of pass rushers, maybe back end at safety? Are there any other names in that market that we ought to be paying attention to?
Not really any specific safeties out there. We'll say the Washington football team's got a couple of players that are sort of on the market, sort of not. They keep leaking that they are, but then they keep leaking they're not trading them, I guess, trying to drive the price up. I don't know. But Ryan, both the Ryans there, Kerrigan and Anderson, are available for trade if you do need the edge rush help, with that. There's really not a lot of whole quality secondary guys out there. In fact, the league in and of itself's kind of got a dearth of secondary talent going on. Devontae Bosby, who the Broncos had playing, they tried to wave him back to the practice squad, and then that guy had 4 53-man offers. So it's just a question of supply and demand right now. There just aren't secondary players out there really available.
What do you make of the AFC? We'll just stay in the conference right now, just taking a step away from the trade for a second. This conference, you've obviously top-heavy: Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, which is showing some warts, but still a very, very good team. Tennessee's pretty good. Buffalo's hit a little bit of a skid. But, that AFC West, it's like the Broncos, just when you think they're done, they're a little frisky. The Chargers feel like they should be a very frisky team, but they've struggled. The Raiders they came in here and out-Browns the Browns in an inclement weather day to get to 4-3. What do you make of kind of this conference and kind of, how you see it unfolding here over the back half of the season?
Well, you guys are in the toughest conference in the AFC. I mean, the East is a joke this year. The South did much better, and the West is really Pat Mahomes and then those other guys scrapping for second. So the only real competitive division in the AFC is the AFC North. I love it, though. I mean, you got 3 quality teams up there. The Browns, look at that. We're no longer cellar dwellers. We're a quality football team, I don't think they're on the same level with the Steelers and even the Ravens, but I think they're getting there, and I think it's headed in the right direction. Just got to shore a few holes up. But I think the Browns are absolutely a contender for the playoffs. I think you're going to have 3 teams out of the playoffs in that division. division, and I think that's good. I think it's good to finally see the Brownies being back to being competitive.
Ben, do you think that there's so many teams that are terrible this year? I can't recall this many this bad. I think going into last weekend there were 10 teams that had 2 or fewer wins, a bunch of one-win teams, and obviously the Jets winless at this point. And I think there's probably a lot of factors to that. Certainly COVID could have something to do with it. Lack of revenue could have something to do with it. And I think Trevor Lawrence has a lot to do with it. And the Jets saying, boy, that's a generational kid that we can draft. Do you think, though, that this is part of a bigger trend, or is this just a one-off? Because it feels to me like there are some teams that are really leaning into, for lack of a better word, the tank.
Yeah, and certainly the Jets. I don't even know if we can call them a football team at this, an NFL sideshow at this point. They're obvious in what they're doing. There are a lot of teams. I believe it's 13 teams right now, and I could check my math on that are 3 wins or fewer. That seems like a lot. There's a vast chasm between the haves and have-nots in the NFL right now, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what has suddenly made that chasm so wide in a league that prides itself on parity. But all of a sudden, that's kind of what we got now. We'll see some regression towards the mean, and you'll see the middle fatten out as the season goes along. But I think next year you're really going to be in for something if they don't get the salary cap situation fixed. With the loss of revenue, the cap could drop as low as $175 million, and you've only got 8 or 9 teams, I think, that have surplus money this year, or appreciable surplus money that they can roll over into next year. So there's going to be some teams next year that are in a massive tactical disadvantage. I would suggest that, for instance, the Saints, who are $175 million over the projected cap for next year, are in for a world of hurt.
And is that a reason why you'd see, you know how Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski view the world in terms of, from salary cap? And as I said, they have their plan. They have a process to implement that plan. They're not going to deviate. They're not a group that's going to go out and try to make a huge, maybe Simmons would have been a real nice splash, but that's a young player that they feel would be a part of their future. They're not going to be in that rental business. But in light of the cap things you just talked about, it would behoove teams that are able to carry some space and roll that over to next year to be able to do so. And I feel like in 2021, that would actually create a pretty significant competitive advantage.
Right. We've talked about that ad nauseum here in Denver, who's got about $30 million that they're going to be rolling over. The Browns are in a pretty good position as well, with a bunch of space to be able to roll over. So teams that have the space right now, you want to preserve that because you're going to have a tactical advantage going into next year, even with ownership, who right now does not want to do a cap smoothing procedure, which would be borrowing against future revenue in order to make sure the cap doesn't deflate. Ownership's against that right now because they feel like it's an interest-free loan to the players. So teams that have the space to roll over right now are going to be a huge competitive advantage next year.
Benjamin Albright, our guest. I saw the news out of your backyard today with John Elway, among others in that front office, testing positive for COVID. We've got kind of an ongoing situation in Baltimore. We had the big disruption with Tennessee earlier in the year, and then it seems like it's kind of settled down a little bit. From your vantage point, the NFL and the handling of this and the future of handling this, do you like where the league is?
I think so. They've managed to preserve that Week 18 possibility thus far without having to dip into it because that's really the only backstop they have. They don't want to move the Super Bowl from the date that it's on due to logistics and getting it all planned and everything set up. So they really only have a 1-week backstop there, and they haven't had to tap that yet. So I think they're in pretty good position. There are certainly bones to pick with the way that they have handled things, but overall it's been successful to this point. I will tell you, they put out a memo this morning. Not sure if it's out there yet, but players and everybody else on the sidelines are going to have to start wearing masks while they're there as well.
Oh, wow. Well, that would be new information there indeed. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, typically the team is allowed to be from the 30 to the 30. They're going to extend that for the 20 to the 20 to provide for more social distancing on the sidelines as well.
Yeah, and that's probably a good thing, just to keep them spread out. So,
Benjamin, you're the best, buddy. We appreciate you a great deal.
What a
Good
treat.
talking to you again.
Absolutely, guys. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, that is the great Benjamin Albright, NFL insider, calling in on the Fifth Third Money Line. The crazy thing is when you have him on, you always learn something.
Yep.
There's always a nugget in there, always, and that was a big one that was in there when we had.
It sure was.
Stinking Chargers.
Dang you, Chargers!
Gosh.
Bunch of cruds.
A reminder, they really are. Reminder: all the guests who appear on CBD do so via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns daily a Fifth Third better. You listen to Cleveland Browns daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If you live and breathe football, you know sometimes keeping your priorities straight can be a challenge. Unfortunately, the same can be true when you gamble. So if you find your gambling is affecting other parts of your life, they can help. Get tips on reasonable gambling at keepitfunohio.com. Time for the Ohio Lottery Keep It Fun segment. We do it every week at this time. And in honor of Election Day, we thought today on the poll we would say, who is the greatest fictional president here on this Election Day? Z, your nominees, you have some people come to mind. We'll try to pare this down to 3 choices or 4. What do we want to do?
Hey, we can do 4. I'm fine
4?
with that.
Okay.
We can do if we only have 3 solid candidates, that's fine.
Okay. All right, let's go one at a time. Z, who's your first nominee for greatest fictional president?
Do you want it to be in order of my ranking?
Doesn't have to be.
No.
All right, I'll try to go random. I will nominate Thomas J. Whitmore, portrayed by Bill Pullman from the fine film Independence Day.
Yes.
Our Independence Day. Put it
Yes.
on the ballot.
Yes.
Put him on.
Put him
Speech
on.
alone, done.
And then he gets in the plane. He was a Persian Gulf pilot. Come on.
University
Leads
of
the charts.
Montana graduate. What do you want?
What do you want?
Everything you need right there. Yeah, I'm down with that. That's a lock.
Okay.
What do you
All
got,
right,
Bo?
Number 1 for me, my first nominee would be, and I do not know the name of the character, but Harrison Ford, Air Force
That would
One,
be-
get off my damn plane.
That would be President James Marshall
Also on my list.
on my
Well
list
done.
as well. We're 2 for 2 on my list. All right, Gibby. I got 2 more on my list.
I did not go movies. I went TV. Are we allowed to do
Yep.
TV?
My other 2 are TV.
Of course.
I have 2 movies,
more
2
I mean,
TV.
you got to go Josiah Bartlett, little Charlie Sheen from the West
Book
Wing.
it. Book it. Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yes.
Martin.
Jed Bartlett was incredible.
Yes.
Martin Sheen.
Martin.
Not Charlie, which would have been a very
Which
different
would
show.
have been a very different show. His
Been a
White
very
House.
different show with Chuck
His
Sheen.
White House, maybe. That would be a Saturday Night
Yeah.
Live skit. Maybe we're still a little.
That's on another network, I
winning.
think, rather than NBC.
That's
but
right.
Jed Bartlett, very, very
Jed
good.
Bartlett, yes. I like that. Okay. My last nominee also comes from the world of television. President David Palmer
Yes.
from 24.
Same.
Those are the 4. I think we've got it. I think that's the Rushmore. I don't even know that we need to separate them. I feel like that's the Rushmore.
No. I think so, too. Is there anybody else? I couldn't think of anybody else.
I'm scouring right now.
Did we miss anybody that in retrospect, we would say, oh, shame on us?
I got a little Jack Nicholson from Mars Attacks.
I don't believe I've seen that, so I don't know that I can go that.
Frank Underwood from House of Cards, but
No,
not likable.
It's 8 bridges too far at that point
Right.
for Frank. It's not
No.
believable. You had to get off of that show after the second season. You got to get out of it.
The movie Deep Impact. Morgan Freeman was the president of the United States.
I haven't seen that.
President
but I have
Tom
imagined
Beck?
that Morgan would do a very good job in that role.
he
Who's
would.
that? Who's Tom Beck?
It wasn't as in the 4. I mean, the fact that we all had the same 4, I think says all that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just have a feeling someone's going to say we're idiots, and I was just
Well,
trying to think if
old
there's anything we
school
missed.
would be President Merkin Muffley from Dr. Strangelove. Peter Sellers, but that's so old, but he shows up highly on these lists if there were lists. That's be out of my realm.
If you're looking for a good chick flick president, Michael Douglas in The American President.
Kevin Kline was a
Dave.
president too. In Dave.
Yep. Dave
And
Kovic.
that was pretty solid. And we don't want to do. We definitely don't want to do. Like when he portrayed Lincoln, because that was incredible. Daniel Day-Lewis portraying Lincoln. Like we can't have Lincoln be involved in this.
Daniel Day-Lewis is come on. He's as good as it gets. What name? Give me a bad Daniel Day-Lewis. The guy's unbelievable. And he was Lincoln.
He really is.
He became Lincoln. He literally lived as Lincoln. He's such a method actor.
Yeah. I've probably watched one of the most depressed. Like There Will Be Blood. I've seen certain parts of that like 1,000 times just if it's on, just because of how good he is.
Last of
When he
Mohicans.
I drink your milkshake.
Will forever be in my pantheon of films.
President Benjamin Asher from Olympus Has Fallen.
I've never
Good
seen
movie. Good
Is it?
choice.
Not on my.
No, I think we
Not
have.
on my top
I think
4,
we
though.
have what we need here.
I think we have the Rushmore.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's it. Oh, it's just a small time when she's the actual president, but Selena Meyer in Veep as president is just It's
Yes.
exceptional, but I don't know that she was. If my memory serves, I don't know that she was elected. I think that she took on the presidency. But that whole show is pretty great. All right, I feel good about those 4.
Got it.
I do too. I think it's it's a pretty great list. David Palmer, so good. So good.
That show was so good.
Original.
When it launched, the idea of it was.
I want Kayla to watch it. I said you would. I promise you would love it. I feel like my kids would even love it. It's so good.
Why does she not want to watch it?
It's interesting when you present the notion that a show is going to be 24 hours and actually take place all in one day. See, here's another problem with just in today's television model, right? Is 24 worked in a sense because you had to wait a week for each thing to happen. So the fact that it happened over 24 hours, it really happened over the course of like 4 to 6 months. It would be very hard to believe,
no question,
that everything that happens to Jack Bauer in one 24-hour period and that craziness erupts from 55 to the top of the hour, on the hour, every hour is difficult. But when it's a 1-week movie, it flows a lot better. By the way,
it's probably harmed by that more than any other show, but I don't know how it would play streaming.
Binged.
And it was great in the moment.
Oh,
it was great in the moment.
It was ahead of its time. A new show. I don't know if you guys watched the start of The Undoing yet on HBO. I'm giving it, after 2 episodes, I'm giving it a very strong endorsement.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a new
program.
What
are you giving?
The Undoing. Nicole Kidman, Hugh Grant on HBO. A little bit of a thriller.
They did a nice job.
Pretty good. And you have to wait. They're releasing it one at a time. So you can't.
Okay.
If you want to try to take it episodically, it's pretty good. It's David Kelly. It's good.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hamp, who's one of the greats, no Tony Goldwyn from the show Scandal. I have not seen Scandal, but the gift that he sent me leads me to believe that we should. That maybe I should see it.
Scandal.
Convincing.
That is.
Never seen that show.
Oh yeah, that's what's her?
I'm in. I just haven't seen it.
Think of her name.
I haven't seen it.
Yes, it's a good show. It gets repeatable.
Right.
It gets overused because she basically gets people out of scandals. That's the whole premise of the show.
That's the one. That's a real person who that's based off of.
That's correct. That's right.
Yeah. In fact, Michael Vick used that person to help him.
Really?
All right. So we've got the fact. All right. So we've got Harrison Ford, Air Force One. You've got Independence Day president. You got Jed Bartlett, and you've got David Palmer. That's it. That's the list. And we'll let you know how that goes as it goes along, because I know that you'll all be very curious. And it was brought to you by Ohio Lottery. Go to keepitfunohio.com. Coming up at the top of the hour, the great Dan Graziano. What an incredible program. He will join us on the trade deadline and all of the things that are happening around the league. That's coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Brilliant Electric Sign Company, Northeast Ohio's largest full-service sign company, serving their clients for over 91 years. Contact the experts at Brilliant Electric Sign to provide you a state-of-the-art signage solution. It's going to grow your business. Visit them at brilliantsign.com. And from Brilliant Sign to the brilliant Dan Graziano joining us, ESPN NFL Insider, great friend of the program.
Yes.
He's calling in on the Fifth Third money line. It is such a privilege to have Dan on. We love him dearly. We're 2 hours away. Pretty quiet on the Western Front, Dan. What are you hearing?
Yeah, all fronts. Look, I mean, we have a situation this year where if you trade for a guy today, he's not going to be able to play for you Sunday, right? Because he's going to need to go through 5-6 days of COVID testing before he can get in your building. So anybody you trade for, you're only going to have for maybe 7-8 games as opposed to 8 or 9. That matters. Number two, teams don't really want to take on contracts right now because the cap's going to go down next year, and you can roll over cap space from one year to the next. So if you trade for a guy and you got to pay him $4 million for the rest of the year, that's $4 million in cap space you can't use next year. So that is on teams' minds as well. So I could look stupid in 2 hours. We could look back and go, oh my God, there were 12 trades in the last 2 hours. What was Graziano talking about? But right now, it definitely sounds like things are quiet and things are slow, and those are a couple of the reasons why.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense in that regard. Now, from the Browns' perspective, they're on their bye this week, and for the three other teams also on the bye, their player would not necessarily miss a game and be able to ramp up. So we'll start with the Browns. We're doing Cleveland Browns Daily. Are you hearing anything at all in terms of the Browns?
No, I mean, I think in the other direction, you've heard that they've gotten calls on David Njoku because, he's a guy that expressed some interest back in the offseason about wanting out. It sounds like they've all made up. But, if the offer's right, you never know. That is a position where Cleveland does appear to be deep. So if you could get something that made it worth your while. But, look, it's the offensive performance Sunday didn't do much to support the idea that they might be better without Odell Beckham, right? Like it seems like they could use as many dynamic playmakers as possible. So moving off of a guy like Njoku, I think would be you'd have to get an awful lot in return. So on the Browns front, that's sort of been what we've been hearing in terms of what they've been involved in, what they've been getting calls on. But in terms of adding someone, I haven't heard too much.
Dan, if there was a move to be made, you mentioned the performance on Sunday, and the one thing Nathan and I were talking about is just the lack of deep threat, a lack of a guy who can get chunk plays that can scare the opposing defense. We've heard rumors of Houston being active. John Ross is down in Cincinnati. Are there some receivers out there to be had on the cheap who can take the top off of defenses?
Well, it depends on what you mean by cheap. I think John Ross would be under normal circumstances, but Cincinnati's not a team that usually does deals. I know they did one last week, but I think it was their first in-season trade since Carson Palmer. So, that's been a while. Number two, a lot of teams don't like to do those deals inside the division. Trade a guy and then have to try and beat him. That's always tricky. Although they've already played twice.
That's right.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget about that. And he's not under contract past this year. So, Ross is a speedy guy that would fit with your description. Will Fuller in Houston, Brandon Cooks in Houston. Kenny Stills is a guy Houston would move. I think they're getting a lot of calls on Fuller. Deshaun Watson really likes Fuller. They already took DeAndre Hopkins away from him. I think you'd have to blow Houston away to get a player like that. You might be able to get a Kenny Stills from them. That seems more likely in terms of who they'd want to move. But look at Fuller. If he's a free agent at the end of this year, if he leaves and he signs somewhere else, there's a pretty good chance Houston gets a third-round compensatory pick in 2022 as a result of that. So if you want him, it's probably going to cost you a second-round pick, right? So now you want to spend a second-round pick to get a guy who's going to walk in 2 months. That's the difficult calculation teams are trying to make. I mean, I know that's a player of interest to the Green Bay Packers, for example. But the Packers are very conservative with their draft picks. They're a draft-to-develop organization. They don't often make trades or bring people in from the outside. So, there are receivers available. But the question is, what do you have to spend? And I don't think even in a case like Houston, which is already out of contention, I don't think they're interested in just giving people away. I think you're going to have to give them something that makes it worth their while.
Boy, you wonder what position Green Bay would be in if they used, I don't know, their first or their second round pick on a wide receiver instead of a backup quarterback and a third string running back. Maybe they wouldn't be
but
in
you know
such
what?
a pickle.
They're the Packers, man. The Packers, they're gonna always be the Packers. They believe in the way they run their organization, and it's not about quick fix or being one player away. They're like the opposite of the Saints, right? Saints trade for Quan Alexander. They have no cap room for him this year or next year, or 3 years from now, and they'll still be getting Drew Brees cap charges. The Saints just YOLO this whole thing and figure they'll figure out the cap down the road. Packers are the opposite. We got to make sure we are good every year for the long term, and they usually are.
Yes, they are. Maybe it helps a little bit to have Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, but nonetheless, successful they are. And I guess they're hoping that Jordan Love will be the next guy to continue that train for them.
They are.
Let's back up and talk league in general. A lot of COVID news in terms of updated protocols, as well as things going on in Baltimore, in Dallas, as well, and with those Packers who play on Thursday night. What's the latest just news-wise going around the league?
The Packers, obviously, A.J. Dillon, the running back, is the player that tested positive. They've identified 2 close contacts of his, one of whom is Jamal Williams, who would be their starting running back Thursday. If Aaron Jones is still hurt, but Jamal Williams won't be able to play Thursday because he's been identified as a high-risk close contact, which means he's got to stay away for 5 days, so he won't be able to play Thursday. So Packers don't have any running backs. In your old fantasy football days, Nate, you would have been writing about who to pick up off the waiver wire tonight, and you'd be like Tyler Irvin and guys like that. So, so they have a problem. Andy Dalton, our Todd Archer just reports, Andy Dalton's on the COVID-19 list, so it's another Ben DiNucci week for the Cowboys at quarterback. So DiNucci versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, what could go wrong there? And then you have the Ravens. Marlon Humphrey, cornerback, tested positive. They've identified 6 of his close contacts as high risk. So that's guys that won't be able to practice all week. Now, their last contact was Sunday. They have to sit out 5 days. Those guys could all return if they continue to test negative by Saturday and conceivably play in the Ravens' next game. But you have to continue to test negative. You have to show no symptoms, and they'll continue to look at where else it might be spreading in those teams. This is how it's going to be, guys. And, remember a couple weeks ago when they were postponing games and all that, rearranging schedule, that stuff's going to probably happen again. And the NFL is just going to white-knuckle this thing to the finish and do the best they can in terms of testing and tracing and limiting spread. So far, they feel like they've done it. I mean, there's the one team, Tennessee, that had the major outbreak, 20-some people affected. But otherwise, it's been pretty well contained, even though here and there you do see a player have to miss a game, a couple of players have to miss a game, and a game maybe have to be adjusted schedule-wise. So half the season down, a very difficult half a season to go, and obviously I think we're all hoping that they can find a way.
Dan Graziano, our guest, ESPN NFL insider, calling in on the Fifth Third Money Line. Dan, a lot of bad teams in the NFL this year. You mentioned the Cowboys, some of its injuries. Some of it, I think. So, I mean, clearly, I'm curious. Like, what lengths will the Jets go to make sure they don't win a game with Trevor Lawrence sitting out there? I don't know that there's any. I mean, they're going to go 0-16. They're going to make damn sure, aren't they, Dan?
At this point, that is the most sensible course of action, which is really bizarre to say, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Adam Gase's end game is. There's no way he could possibly believe that he's coming back next year to coach the team. But, he's still there. They haven't made a move on him yet. So are they going to let him finish out the season? If so, it behooves him to try and win some games because presumably he's going to want to coach again in the NFL at some point, be it as an offensive coordinator even or maybe even down the road a head coach again. But, it's tough for me. It's always tough for me to believe that players and coaches go out there every week and say, well, we better not win this game. I find that hard to believe. I know you guys went through some seasons out there recently where they didn't win any games or only won one. So, and I'm sure that the players and coaches on those teams were not sitting there thinking, okay, what can we do to lose this week so we make sure to get the number 1 pick? Not how it works. But from an organizational standpoint, if the Jets are standing back and sizing things up, losing all their games is not the worst plan at this point. They're certainly not going to get back into contention. And if you believe the scouting reports on Trevor Lawrence, he is the kind of guy that is worth sacrificing other things to get. So if that's the case, the Jets become an interesting team to watch. Who's going to coach them, right? And that's going to be pretty key to what happens with Trevor Lawrence. You know, circumstances matter so much, man. Like it's, you know, like I'm looking at Daniel Jones throwing interceptions last night. The Giants believe in him. Dwayne Haskins has been benched in Washington because his team doesn't believe in him, right? Like, so is his development going to be negatively affected while Daniel Jones gets chances to continue to develop? I mean, where you land matters. I know Baker Mayfield is doing his best, but I mean, he's on his fourth head coach in 3 years in the NFL, and that just can't be very helpful to a guy's development. So hopefully for his sake, this is the one. But in terms of Trevor Lawrence, if he ends up with the Jets, all eyes are going to be on who's coaching him and who's going to be in charge of developing him as a pro.
I'm surprised, honestly, a team doesn't make a move for Sam Darnold right now. I look at Ryan Tannehill's post-Gase bump. You have to imagine at this point the Jets are going. The Jets are going all in on it. Get Darnold out of there. Be proactive about it. For example, if I'm the Patriots, give me Sam Darnold right now. Cam Newton, we know we're at the end of the rope. Clearly, the other guys there are not the issue. We need to start planning, and what better way to do it? And it lets the Jets lean into their tank, which they want to do. You can still trot Joe Flacco out there, fine. But yeah, I think it's interesting. As somebody who did this radio show, and this was once Beau came in, it really elevated us to much more of a winning franchise.
All
so
I know
thank
is
you.
winning.
Thank you for that, Beau. You know, I did this show when, we went 0-16. And there was such a stigma around that, Dan, you know that. I don't think that exists anymore. I think the Jets fan base is like, go 0-16, don't mess this up, and don't let us not get Lawrence. I don't think anybody cares about 0-16 anymore.
I live in the New York suburbs. My neighbors are Jets fans. Like I know, I hear their pain. The idea of Sam Darnold going to New England and being a success is like, that would totally crush these people. Of all the places, right? New England, they're perpetual tormentors. But he's hurt right now. Actually, I'm not sure anybody would make a move for him at this point. His shoulder's hurt. But Trevor Lawrence, that's who they have their eye on, and it's honestly, not to get too personal. My older son roots for the Bengals because, like, when he was a 4-year-old, he got a McDonald's Happy Meal with Carson Palmer in it, and he just decided to be a Bengals fan, and he's stuck with it. You know, God love him. I mean, of all the teams to pick. So last year, he was so mad every time they were close to winning a game because he wanted Burrow. Like that, like he was locked in on, we're going to get Joe Burrow, and he's so excited to have Joe Burrow. So Jets fans are there right now, and it's a tough place to be.
By the way, that guy seems pretty spot on. I think he'd be pretty happy with Joe Burrow right now.
It looks great, right? I mean, yeah, absolutely. So
we don't like that.
When the Browns were going through it, you didn't really know who they were locked in on or who it was going to be because there was all kinds of possibilities. I'm sure there was a time when it was Darnold, right, that people were locked in on there. But it ended up being Baker, and I don't know. You still see some good there. You still see some struggle weeks. So hopefully he can put some consistency together.
Dan, you're the best. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Yeah, happy to help out and kill a little time here on a very boring trade deadline day so far.
Far from it. We always win big when you're on. The great Dan Graziano, ESPN,
all right, guys.
NFL Insider, calling in. He is the best. He calls in on the Fifth Third Money Line. Reminder, all guests who appear on CBD do so via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns daily a Fifth Third better. You're right, by the way. You're right. There was, and I was not with the organization, was not doing the show at the time, but there was an incredible pushback at that time for what was perceived to be happening here with that 0-16, 1-15. Incredible. It's gone.
Gone.
It's gone. It's over. Once teams saw, asset accumulation, picking at the top of the draft. Now you got to hit. You got to hit on it when you get up there. Lots of teams have been picking the top of the draft for a long time. You got to hit when you're there. But it's your best chance to be good quickly. It's the best chance you have. It's an NBA's followed this model. Billy Beane was doing this for 20 years with the A's. This is the model. It's accumulate assets, draft well, and watch them develop. There's no – I think you're right. I think Jets fans are like, yeah, bring it.
Bring it on. They're actively rooting against their team from winning. And
yes.
The Browns, obviously, look, the Jets, even we had, Mike Tannenbaum on, and they went to the AFC Championship game in the 2000s. And perhaps that would have made it easier for Browns fans to deal with that type of losing, knowing that at least a decade ago we were in the Final Four. We haven't had that. We haven't had anything to get excited about. So it was harder, but that's one of the things to me as somebody who had to do this. You know, if we're on NYJD, you can lean into it. It's fun. Fine. We can have fun with it.
Oh, yeah.
We're already talking about Trevor Lawrence. Doesn't matter. But it wasn't like that here. And the other thing that Indy's right about it, which is interesting, you had back-to-back number 1 overall picks. And in hindsight, it was obvious Pat Mahomes should have been the guy without question that everybody was tanking for. It wasn't. And that's not on the Bray. Wasn't even the first quarterback taken. He ends up going 10th in that draft. You know, and Myles Garrett's a great player. There's nothing wrong with getting Myles Garrett. But you had Mahomes that year, and then the next year there was confusion. Was it Baker? Was it Darnold? Was it Allen? There were some people, you came on here and said, Josh Rosen. And so it wasn't the Joe Burrow year. It wasn't the Trevor Lawrence year. Right. Nonetheless,
it wasn't a foregone conclusion.
It was not a foregone conclusion who was going to go number 1. Even by the time it felt like, and maybe I'm misremembering, but it felt like in the Kyler draft, by the time we got close, or even at the combine, it was Kyler was going to go number 1.
We felt that at the combine it was very real, and at that point though, I remember, and if I were a gambling man, I would have put a substantial amount on. I don't know why we didn't, but if still you didn't,
we weren't allowed.
Sure.
NFL
like, are they?
Employees.
That's right. Well, you're not. I would be, but
Right.
The thing that was I'd be curious about was like, wow, there is so much around him, but it was like, are they really going to bail on Rosen? And I think that's part of this too. You mentioned Tannehill. Bridgewater had the injury, so that's a little different. But this idea of bailing, I think Tannehill is a real cautionary tale of be careful what you're getting rid of. Because in the right circumstances, and I agree with you on Darnold. Darnold's young. Like, a team could easily trade for him for next to nothing in respect of what his talent is, and I think his talent is that. And I'm not saying he's who knows what he's going to be. But
Sure.
Who would have thought Tannehill would be what he is? And you could get him for a bargain basement price. Boy, I'd roll the dice. You mentioned them. What about the Niners on a give up nothing and have Kyle work with him for a couple years and get to run that system out on the West Coast? I mean, those are the type of things you think about when you think about who could possibly be available there. But I think you're right that the view of it is very, very different. Very different. All right, coming up next, some takeaways defensively from the loss to the Raiders, and at the bottom of the hour we go better or worse. It is Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Beau Bishop here for my great friends at Raising Cane's. And on game day, you go for the win with Raising Cane's chicken fingers. You can stack that roster with delicious hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers and cane sauce. Spectacular. Huddle up, crinkle-cut fries, coleslaw, buttery Texas toast. Ask for them to toast both sides. That's a little treat and a nice little win. They'll happily do it for you. Top it all off with freshly made tea and lemonade. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, they're great friends. They're a proud sponsor of Ohio State Athletics and the Ohio High School Association. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. OHSAA going to play down in Columbus, I saw yesterday, at Obetz, which is the former crew training facility for the state championships in our socially distanced times. I'm not sure what the reason for that was, but nevertheless, that's the way that goes. All right, in terms of our defense from Sunday, anything jump out at you that we weren't able to get to yesterday, sir?
Well, again, I think we'll just focus on what has become at this point, you would have to say, a chronic ill of this defense. That is the ability on the money downs to get off the field. And it's becoming a real problem. 8 of 14 on third downs, 2 of 2 on fourth downs. That's 10 of 16, 2/3 of the time, basically, that the Raiders were able to extend their drives. The Browns have forced exactly 1 punt in the last 2 games combined. To be 1-1 under those auspices is tremendous. It honestly is. You typically aren't going to win if that is the case. And yet the Browns have found a way to be 1-1. Took Baker Mayfield's greatest performance of his career to do it, but they were able to get it done. Again, Olivier Vernon showed up. He got a couple of sacks in this game. But the Browns seem to be at the point of attack getting pushed off the football. And that's our guy Sheldon, who I love. Larry Ogunjobi, I don't think, had a great game against the Raiders. Our linebackers are struggling in all aspects of the game. Andrew Sendejo, I believe, is struggling at the free safety position. So we've got holes we're struggling up the middle, really, at all 3 levels. You know, our defensive tackles, when you think about all the attention that's being paid to Myles Garrett, should be getting to the quarterback. Richardson's a guy that's good for a few sacks. His last full sack came back in week number 3. Larry Ogunjobi has no sacks this year. Guy had 5.5 in each of the last 2 seasons. So I don't know what's going on there. Claiborne started off the season hot, sacking each of the first 2 games. Since he suffered that injury, he hasn't been the same. And so you wonder, at his age, how much does a little bit of an injury really hinder his ability to be effective? Porter Gustin has kind of disappeared a little bit from the map. So you're not getting pressure outside of Myles. You are not getting off the field, and you're really relying on either a transcendent play from Myles or a turnover, a takeaway. And you haven't gotten them in 2 of the last 3 games. And really those takeaways, not only have those takeaways been important for the defense, keeping the offense off the scoreboard, they've been critical for getting our offense going.
Yep. You mentioned this last week on the show. It was a very solid point out of you. It seems that what we had been doing was Myles, come save us. And he had. I mean, the idea, and we talk to Coach about this all the time on the Coach's Show, I mean, can we really expect Myles Garrett to do a strip sack every single game? Like, that's what's required, right?
Right.
That's not sustainable.
Exactly.
It's not sustainable to have a guy have a strip sack in every game. It's just not. And you need that because of the way we're playing defensively. It's not there right now. And unlike the offense, where Wyatt Teller, Nick Chubb, and certainly Austin Hooper will be back in the second half of the season, on the defensive side, you're going to get healthier in the secondary. Who knows with Greedy? I mean, we're 8 games in and no talk of it. I mean, it could be the whole year for him. I heard our good buddy Jake asked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Jake Trotter asked about it yesterday. Are you the point with – and they don't know. On Greedy. They just don't know. I mean, it'll be healed when it's healed. That's what it is. But that is there's going to have to be something that changes.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep this can't continue with the stats that you're bringing out there. That is not sustainable in any way.
We've faced more snaps in the red zone than any team in the NFL, and we've allowed more first downs than any team in the NFL. That's just not winning football. So to be 5-3 despite that is good. But yes, something does have to change. And I don't know, does it mean Carl Joseph's got to get out there? You know, Sendejo's played every defensive snap this season. Is that something that we can continue with? Do you give Ronnie Harrison a shot back at the free safety spot? Because frankly, I think you look at our defense and you could say who the best player's been. Myles Garrett's in a class unto himself. Denzel is probably then in the next class all to himself. And then of everybody else, you know, Money Mitch has played well, but he's had some ups and downs. Ronnie Harrison's the one guy that I feel like has popped every time he's on the field. Every time.
Always around the ball.
Always. And so
we
need to
scoop some of those, then those would lead to 6.
Well, they say that's why he's playing safety, not wide receiver.
That's right. That was their old NCAA football video game with Lee Corso on it where he would say that. And that's why you're playing defensive back and not receiver. That was like one of the auto.
Yeah.
That would come in all the time. All right, good stuff there. Rumpke Waste Recycling, family-owned and operated since 1932. It's been in business for 87 years. They keep neighborhoods clean and green. Their customers, employees, and communities, they're all part of the family. Visit them at rumpke.com to learn more. Coming up next, a little better or worse or sweet spot. Peter King with the power rankings on this one. Gribbs will join as well. Pure Joy coming your way next. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Let's head on the Fifth Third money line, joined by our good buddy Andrew Gribble. He is our senior staff writer. Before we get to better or worse sweet spot Gribs, just what you've seen through 8 games. This thing on track the way that it should be? Anything you'd like to see improved here in the bye week?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if any of us would have been asked about being 5-3 at this point in the season, we all would have taken it. I think that's the thing that you hang your hat on the most. And but I look at this first half of the season, and it was just honestly kind of weird. I mean, it's hard to find a team ever that went the first 8 weeks of the season without scoring between 8 and 31 points in a stretch of 8 games.
Yes.
I mean, it's really hard to do. And so it's really for the Browns, it comes down offensively to they've shown up to these games. They've either had it or they don't. And I think now it's just about having it more than you don't for the second half of the season, because I think the defense, you are what you are. You're going to give up a lot of third and fourth downs, but you got to create those turnovers. It's the offense that I think needs to deliver every week to carry this team to where it needs to go.
Yeah, that's a tough margin there on that. Nathan, talking about that as well. The idea that basically every week you need Myles Garrett to create a game-changing play, and he's done it for most. It certainly is a big ask. All right, time for a little better or worse or sweet spot. It's brought to you by Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine, the nation's largest medical school, is preparing future generations of physicians, pharmacists, and dentists. Gibby.
Hi.
Go ahead. How are you, buddy?
Doing wonderful. You just kind of
little
stopped
better or
mid-sentence. I didn't.
It was the old
I
quick
thought there was
stop.
something else coming there, but
He
it
gave
It's a
us-
layup for you.
He gave me the
Gibby.
quick stop.
was premature.
Oh, Gibby. Oh, Gibby.
Give it.
I'm sorry, I'm mesmerized by your attire today.
So strong.
Splendid.
I feel so
strong.
relaxed in this. I feel so good.
You
so
should.
dignified. Yeah, I feel great. I really feel great.
All right, let's get into it. Compliments of Peter King. Now, he did his rankings before the season started. Got a lot of backlash. It was a little interesting. And he is doing it again during the bye week. So
this is his first since the first week?
yeah, correct.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, this could be interesting to see how this all shakes out. This compliments of Peter King, his Football Morning in America piece. Let's get down to it. Should the following teams be higher, closer to number 1, or lower, closer to 32, or are they ranked just right? First and foremost, the Browns come in ranked 17th. In Peter King's preseason poll, he had us 24th. Should we be higher, lower, or are we just right? Gribble, I will start with you.
You know, I'd move the Browns a little bit higher based on these current rankings. And he's got the Raiders right ahead of the Browns at 16, but the two teams that are ahead of the Raiders, I just think the Browns are better than right now. I think that San Francisco and Chicago are both trending the wrong way, and I think that the Browns are going to make up some ground on both of those teams moving forward. And the 49ers, everyone's hurt, and I think you have to factor that into this. And so I'll get the Browns a little bit higher and better in this range.
Zegura.
Yeah, I think we're better than that. I would put us ahead of San Francisco, ahead of Chicago. Now, we beat the Colts head-to-head. That's got to count for something. But they are
We played the game.
We played the game and we beat them. It was a football game that happened, and we did beat them. They're 13th. They're, in fact, in a whole different tier, in the could-break-through tier, which we are not. I think our defense is limiting us. In fact, I think the Raiders are better than the 49ers and the Bears for sure. So I think, if anything, we should be up there. If we're on the cusp tier, which I'm fine with, I think Indy should join us in that tier, and should be Indy, us, and the Raiders right at the top of it.
Bishop?
You have that right. You take the Raiders and you take the Browns and you move us both up. You move Indy down. Indy goes to 15. The Raiders go to 13. We're sitting there at 14 on the cusp.
All right, let's get into the actual rankings, guys. Number 1 in Peter King's power poll, the Pittsburgh Steelers, rightfully so. 7-0, the only undefeated team. Oh, do you need to talk?
I was just saying, I hate to tell you, I told you so. I told you so. I've been saying this for weeks. Welcome to the party, Peter King.
Okay, great. Moving on. The first team we're going to debate today, Tampa Bay, at number 2. They are 5-2 on the year. Zegura, we'll start with you. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right?
I believe, Gibbe, as you proclaimed a week ago, we're playing better or worse. Or sweet
right,
spot.
say
You did
No
say that.
idea.
Your words,
We
not
played
ours.
The tape. We racked it.
I think Taco Bell Tampa Bay is right where they should be. Number 2, I'm going to keep them ahead of the Chiefs just because it's fun. Clearly, they played down to their competition on Monday, but this is a team that I think has the personnel defensively to play the way you would need to beat the Chiefs. And I think offensively now, guess what? We haven't seen the best of them yet. You haven't had Chris Godwin healthy at any point this year. And guess who's coming to town this week? Antonio Brown. They're going to trot out a 3-receiver set that's going to have Mike Evans. It's going to have Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown with Gronk, who, by the way, I don't know if he went to that. Remember a couple years ago when LeBron went down to some doctor and got some injections, and then he came back in his back or something?
Kobe went to Germany for the horse placenta on the knee.
Fusions, and then they come back and they're different people.
Fusion it. Let's go.
Gronk has discovered something like that at about week 4 or 5 because now he's running down the field. He looks great. The Bucks are legit. Yeah. Legit.
Bishop.
They're worse, slightly, not too far. I think Kansas City's better than them right now. And I'm close on Seattle. I think Seattle, look, their defense isn't great, but they might not need to be. And their only loss is they're up 2 scores with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left against Arizona, rather. That's their only loss. And they can score with anybody.
Should have lost to Minnesota at home.
Well, you can't do that. Could have. You could have. That doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's a close. They're right there, and I think their offensive firepower with a combination of Russ and those 2 receivers is Metcalf's unbelievable. He's unbelievable.
Gribble.
They are worse, and I think I'll agree with Nathan that they are legit, but they are also legitimately not in the same league as the Chiefs right now. I can't make that comparison yet right now. I think there are 3 teams in the AFC that are better than Tampa Bay right now, and I'll include Baltimore in that group with Pittsburgh and Kansas City. And I agree with both. I think it's up for debate between Tampa Bay and Seattle as the best team in the NFC, but nowhere close to the Chiefs right now. And that honestly maybe offends me a little bit more with this list that he's not doing it week by week. Like, I don't know how you look at the body of work for the first half of the season and put Tampa Bay ahead of Kansas City.
Fair. All right, we move on. Number 3 is Kansas City. Number 4, Seattle. That takes us to number 5, the Baltimore Ravens, 5-2. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right? Bishop, I'll actually go to you first.
Oh, what a wonderful treat. How nice of you, Gibby. Something's not quite right, and we went over this a little bit at the top of the show. They're missing Yonda. Now they're without Stanley. They can't run it the way that they were used to. And Lamar, he just isn't all the way healthy the way that he was. You're just not seeing it. But you have to question if that's even sustainable with the amount of hits he takes. I would have him slightly lower. I think Tennessee might be better than them right now, and I think the Packers, by the time it's all said and done, are probably have achieved more early on this season than the Ravens as well.
Gribble, what say you?
I'll go slightly better, slightly higher, just because, like I said before, I think these 3 teams in the AFC are better than anyone else in the NFL right now. I agree, though, they just haven't looked right, and clearly losing your left tackle is not ideal going into the second half of the season, but I think their defense is going to really turn it up in the second half of the season. I think they're going to be hard to beat. And I think maybe once you get into the end of the season, they unleash Lamar a little bit as a runner because you're maybe not as concerned about keeping him healthy for the stretch run.
Zegura.
They're probably just right. It's probably the sweet spot, honestly, for them. I'm not ready to say Tennessee coming off of getting dismantled really and that could have been a hangover from the Steelers game, or the fact Joe Burrow's awesome, but they were dismantled by the Bengals. The Ravens crushed the Bengals, and I think you think about that was 3 weeks ago that they absolutely annihilated the Bengals, and the Bengals since then have been pretty tough, played pretty well. Maybe it was 4 weeks ago. They just don't look right to me, and they don't scare me if you take a lead on them. I don't believe if they have the ball down 6 with 2 minutes or 3 minutes to go, I'm not afraid of that team. And I think I would absolutely be afraid of the Buccaneers. I would absolutely be afraid of the Chiefs. I'd absolutely be afraid of Seattle. I would absolutely be afraid of the Steelers. I'm not afraid of the Ravens in that scenario. And to me, that puts them down. I probably would be more afraid of Tennessee, honestly, more afraid of Green Bay, more afraid of New Orleans even though I'm not huge on the Saints right now. I don't know. They seem to me to be a team that's really, really good, but with a ceiling. Now, as I pointed out earlier, though, if they get his rookie career over 100 yards.
All right, up next, guys, Tennessee comes in at number 6. Green Bay at number 7 takes us to number 8 and New Orleans, who Nathan just mentioned. Gribble, should the Saints be higher, lower, or are they just right?
I think they're just right, and I think it's impressive that they've gotten to this point at 5-2 in kind of an ugly fashion without Michael Thomas. So I think it's really going to help them over the second half of the season. And really, no wide receivers at all. And I think that it's been a one-man show with Alvin Kamara there, but I think they're just right because I'm not ready to say Buffalo is better than the Saints, and certainly not some of the other teams behind them. And I just think Green Bay is clearly better than them right now. So they're just right.
Zegura.
Boy, do they feel 5-2?
No.
They don't, but they are, and I just think they've done this, and they're squeaking by. Michael Thomas hasn't really played for this team. They're going to get the test against Tampa Bay this Sunday. That is a huge game. I believe that's Sunday Night Football, which they will compel you, Beau Bishop. You'll be compelled to watch that game.
There we go.
On a Sunday night. They'll do it to you again.
Living your best life.
It's weird. I think that Peter King, by and large, has got this pretty. He's got this pretty right. I think this is probably the sweet spot for them. I think they're the team, though, that from this next group, Green Bay and New Orleans, but especially New Orleans, that defense gets going again, that could really jump up. Because Kamara is special. Alvin Kamara is a special player in the National Football League.
Zegura, professional fence sitter today. Bishop, what say you?
It's the sweet spot.
Sweet spot. Deal with it, Gibby.
Up next. We'll move on then. All right. Real
I
exciting.
mean, I'm not just going to repeat everything they said.
Buffalo is 9th. Miami is 10th. That takes us to number 11. Arizona at 5-2. Kyler Murray and company coming in at number 11. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right? Z?
I find it hard to believe that we're doing this segment and the Miami Dolphins are 10th on the list and they just get glossed over. We don't even give them a discussion. So I'm going to hijack.
Well, you're about to right
I'm going to hijack this Arizona
right
discussion and make it about Miami. And I'm going to move the Dolphins down lower. Their defense, believe it or not, did you know? Let me get my hater. It's a little known fact that the Dolphins have given up the fewest points in the league thus far. True story. Who knew? Not me. I didn't. But they're not the 10th best team in the NFL. Give me Arizona over them. Yes, they did just beat the Rams, so you can't take the Rams. But I'm going to move Arizona up a spot. They are better. I even think the Colts, with the solid defense that they play, would be a very difficult matchup for Miami as well. So they are higher, which means lower on the list, which means worse. Hence, better or worse.
Okay, I have no idea. Thanks, Nathan, for nothing. Beau, what direction do you feel like going in?
Arizona's better than that. They're better than Miami for all the reasons Z just said. It'd be one thing if Fitzmagic was playing, but Tua was less than impressive. He didn't kill him, but he was. I don't know that he's someone who's going to go win him games. And they had Fitzmagic, so there was no reason to do that. I would have Arizona ahead of Buffalo now too. Buffalo's floundering. I know who they've beaten, but they are not impressive in doing so, and they do not have it unlocked offensively. I'd honestly put Arizona right there with New Orleans, and right around that 8th spot.
Why does Josh Allen come out gangbusters, make us be like, oh, maybe we were wrong about Josh Allen, and then he's right back to Josh Allen again? Why did he do that to us?
Go look at who they played, and it explains it. Remember, we talked about this. At the time, they were like 3-0 or something like that, and then it was 5 of their next 6 were a real deal, and he's come back to earth.
Yeah, but one of those games was the Jets, and he didn't produce a touchdown.
Correct. Yeah.
Don't buy Buffalo.
Not on my fantasy team.
Gribble, what say you? Arizona, Miami, what direction you want to go in?
I've got Arizona significantly better than the Dolphins. I mean, come on. They've pulled off a nice stretch here, but I think it's going to be a little bumpy here for Tua over these next few weeks. They're not going to get 3 non-offensive touchdowns in the game every week. I think he's a guy that's got a great upside, great future, but I don't like the skill players he's surrounded by in Miami, and I think it's going to be tough. And I think that they're for the second half of the season, I've got them with a losing record.
All right, real quick, just tell me which team. Which one would you rank higher? Because we have like
what
30
does higher
seconds.
mean?
San Francisco or
Who's better?
Chicago?
Who's better?
Who would you rank?
Well,
Who would you rank higher? Zegura, go.
Better? The Bears, because the Niners don't have a team anymore.
Beau.
Better. Bears are better.
Gribble.
Bears.
That's it.
Thanks,
That's all I needed. We got to get it in. We got to go to break.
Well, we got to say goodbye to Gribbs. I got to talk about the Fifth Third Money Line. A reminder, all guests who appear on CBD do so via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns daily a Fifth Third better.
Before we go to break, because it's a relevant point, I want to say, what the heck? I don't know. I've watched a little Miami. Agba's got 6 sacks.
Yeah, he was great.
He's playing great.
Yeah,
he looked pretty nice here. Great. Maybe he was cast aside prematurely.
He couldn't stay healthy. Get out of here.
We got to go to break. So much more to come. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Nominations for the 2020 Helmets program are now being accepted. Zenith invites you to nominate your Ohio high school to receive $25,000 worth of new Zenith helmets. Visit promotions.clevelandbrowns.com to learn more. Go ahead, Z. That was dramatic.
Top of the hour, big trade news. Adam Schefter, a rare intra-division trade. The Dolphins are trading wide receiver Isaiah Ford to the New England Patriots, per source.
I love you. Like if anything ever happened and you needed a place to stay for an extended period of time, you could come here, you could stay, you could drink my good whiskey, we'd enjoy ourselves. I think it'd be great. But what the hell are you doing? That build up, and even if for people on the stream with the big waving, I mean, what are we doing? I thought maybe we had something. Nothing.
I'm laughing because it's this trade deadline, and that's the news we get at the top of the hour. Isaiah Ford.
But you sold it to me because we're in a different.
Well, that's what I do.
30
on the Zoom, like it was real, like you had something huge.
But see, you interpreted this is big. It was me just being exasperated. This is the only trade we're getting. Isaiah Ford. See, it's a fine line.
Hey,
between...
who won the poll? Who was our president?
Hold on 1 second.
You have 12 seconds.
All right. Jed Bartlett, 41%. David Palmer, 32%.
Wow.
Thomas Whitmore, 21%. James Marshall, only 5%.
I'm fine with
wow. Get off my plane.
that.
Hey, tomorrow.
Next level coming up next.
Tomorrow.
Silence Bishop.
Andrew Barry. Yeah, I'm hijacking. Andrew Barry presser at 1 o'clock.
Send it to them.
And by the way, Andrew Barry.
Finish it.
Andrew Barry will join us live tomorrow. The next level is next. You're listening to 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Yes.
You down, guys?